Well, hello, writers. Welcome to episode number 354 of How Do You Write? I'm Rachael Herron. I am so thrilled that you are with me today as we are talking to Leslie Karst. And she was just a joy. Please stick around for the interview. We talk about why not to read reviews and also the generosity of writers and also how fun writing dialogue can actually be. Before we get into that, what has been going on around here? Oh, a lot of puppy fun, some puppy training. Oh my gosh, so much puppy training and so many puppy cuddles. And that has been really wonderful. We are in love with Professor Junebug, and I think she's going to be a very good, big-hearted, wonderful little dog. I think that she might be Kelpie Lab. I saw a Kelpie on TikTok and I was like, that is her. And then I decided to Google Kelpie Lab, Kelpador, as they're called. And all of the Kelpadors look just like her. So I think she's going to be a driven little pocket full of sunshine. That is, well, she already is that. So that has been awesome. What else has been going on? I've been doing my writing. Those 500 words a day of extra fun are just so good. Still enjoying it. And my 90 days to done a 90-day revision classes wrapped up. I think I mentioned that last week and I miss them. But I want to say that I am taking this month for myself, and that feels pretty good. The classes that I teach are not only about the craft and how to, which they are hugely about, but they're also a lot of me holding space for the more difficult emotions that swirl around writing sometimes, and helping students realize that those emotions are okay. They're normal, they're welcome, and we do our writing anyway. And so I took all of April off, including Rachael Says Right. I have my amazing assistant, Ed, doing Mondays, and a person who's always in Rachael Says Right, May, is doing Wednesdays for me. And I am just going kind of head down, quiet into my projects and supporting myself really deeply. And that feels good. So it feels like the right decision. It is still the first week of April. And I am just enjoying kind of moving through the days with a little less urgency, a little more ease. I'm not letting anyone down. There's no danger of that. I can just exist at my desk, and that feels very, very good. Speaking of the 90 Days to Done courses, they are open right now. Y'all know they sell out pretty quickly, especially the revision. But if you are interested in taking either of these, now would be the time to go to rachelherron.com/90 days to done. The numbers 90 and the word 90 days to done, or rachelherron.com/revision. Those are open right now. And I got to say, in just these last 3 months, I have had previous students who have gotten agents, who have gotten publishing deals, and who have also self-published their incredible, gorgeous, well-revised, well-edited, well-produced, beautiful books. So it has been a pretty exciting time around here with ye olde Rachael Herron students, graduates of 90 Days to Done and 90-Day Revision. So that is cool. And I just wanted to mention a couple of testimonials for these classes. This is from Noelle, who said, I got a lot out of my liberal arts education. I don't want to knock it too much, but the truth of it is, while I could understand this 3-act structure, character, theme, or whatever, I never gained the tool set I learned here, which is how to write, how to sit down each day or most days and do this actual work. You've given me the practical and psychological tools to crank out a whole freaking novel-length manuscript and then revise it. I don't know if I'll ever be published or a full-time writer or anything like that, but I do know I can be more of my true self by getting words on a page. Also, I don't think I'll spill any secrets, but Noelle just emailed me out of the blue, and she is doing something really cool publishing-wise and having a ball with it. And that's because she knows how to write, how to get out of her own way and do the writing. And this one comes from Karen. Writing my first draft, 90,000 words, was easy as pie compared to slogging through my first and second revisions. I don't know if I ever would have made it to this point without Rachel's class. The camaraderie, coaching, and weekly classes kept me on the right path and chugging along. Having a safe group of people to share my book with was priceless. This gave me the confidence to put myself out there. My book will be in good enough to shape to send out my first agent query letter within the week. Thank you, Rachel. You are welcome. So please, if anybody's interested in that, I'd go check it out now. I don't teach these classes often, only 2 or 3 times a year and or less. So I would love to have you. I have a superpower of gathering amazing human beings together to do this work. And to be honest with you, I don't allow non-amazing human beings in these classes because I control them. So it's a safe space to be doing your work, learning the craft, and also the how to. And I would love to hear from you if you would like to do this. So please go check that out if that is of interest to you. What else did I want to share with you? Oh, I wanted to say to Darren Blake, AKA the Flick Guy, who upped his pledge on Patreon. Darren has won NaNoWriMo 18 times. And you will know what this means, Darren. I wish for you that the why I shouldn't are actually whys in disguise. That is what I would like to share with you. Thank you for supporting me. It means the world. Thank you to all my patrons. Really appreciate it. I do have a patron Q&A going out either tomorrow or the next day. So that'll be coming for everyone to listen to. And that is the bonus you get as a listener of this podcast. You get to hear those people at that level ask questions and then I answer them. That's $5 a month. So thanks everybody for that. Let us jump right now into the interview with Leslie. And here is her bio. The daughter of a law professor and a potter, Leslie Karst waited tables and sang in a new wave rock band before deciding she was ready for a real job and ended up at Stanford Law School. It was during her career as a research and appellate attorney in Santa Cruz, California, that she rediscovered her youthful passion for food and cooking, at which point she once again returned to school, this time to earn a degree in culinary arts. Now retired from the law, Leslie spends her days penning the Sally Solari culinary mystery series, as well as cooking, gardening, cycling, and singing alto in her local community chorus. She and her wife and their Jack Russell mix split their time between Santa Cruz and Hilo, Hawaii, and her memoir, Justice is Served, has just been released. Please enjoy this fabulous, fun, and delightful interview with Leslie. And wherever you are, I wish for you that you are getting some work done, even if it's just a little bit. Little bits add up. So happy writing to you all. And here we go. Well, I could not be more pleased to welcome you to the show today. Welcome. Will you please share your name and pronouns with us?
My name is Leslie Karst, and I'm a she.
Leslie, your book is so exciting to me. Will you please give us the title of the book that is just coming out?
It's called Justice is Served, a tale of scallops, the law, and cooking for RBG. Kind of a different kind of book.
It's a
how many books are about law and cooking? I don't
law,
think there's any.
cooking, scallops, and RBG. And it's just absolutely divine. So, but besides this book that is coming out, it'll probably come out right about the time that I release this episode. I will try to make sure that that happens. You also write crime fiction and you are prolific. I would love to talk to you about how and where and how do you get it all done?
Well, about the crime fiction,
Or all of the writing.
Well, I'm lucky enough to be a retired attorney, so I have time to write, and which is very nice because it's very time consuming. The writing is time consuming on its own, but the publicity and marketing, because as everybody knows, we authors now have to do virtually all ourselves, is also very time consuming. It's all fun, but if I had to work a 40-hour-a-week job, I'm in awe of my friends who write and work full time. But anyway, you want to know how the mystery novels came about?
Or all of your books. Where and when do you write? How do you write? How do you get it done?
Okay, well, I tend to write in the mornings. I get up, I get a cup of coffee, very important. I go through all my emails, do all that stuff, read the newspaper, and then I sit down, and it depends on, if I have a deadline or not. With my crime fiction, I've generally I've been doing a book a year, and my publisher has a deadline. And so when that's happening and maybe the writing is not going as quickly as it might, I'm more anxious and I write more and I sit down more. Whether or not I get anything written is another thing, but I try to sit down every morning and write 2,000 words or several hours, depending on which comes first. And I'm pretty organized, so it's generally not an issue for me. But when you're stuck in that middle, you're a crime writer, that dead middle where, do you want to have somebody come into the room with a gun? What are you going to do to shake things up? I usually know the beginning, and I always know, well, not always, once I changed my mind about who did it, but generally I know who did it and why. But you need to obviously have subplots and red herrings and clues and placing those and figuring out what goes where. And sometimes I'm stymied by that. That's hard. And so then you sit and stare at your screen and you're like, so I'm pretty good about sitting and writing.
I have a couple students recently who have asked me about red herrings and plotting crime fiction. And I have to say that like my last two novels were thrillers, and that was it's really not my strength. And I just kind of gibbered when they asked me, how do you
Are you a pantser?
plan for, I am a pantser. So
Yeah.
How do you plan for the red herrings, and how do you plan to layer in and weave those things? Are you a pantser as well?
Yeah, I know. Well, it's interesting. I started out my first, I write the Sally Solari culinary mysteries because I love food. We'll get in more about that later, I'm sure. And the first one I wrote, I had like a 20-page outline. I was so nervous about it. I plotted the whole thing out and I knew exactly where I was going. So when I sat down to write it, it was actually pretty easy, because the writing for me is easy. If I know where I'm going with it, I love to write. But it's the plotting that's difficult. So as the fifth one just came out in August, and I just turned in the manuscript for number 6, which is coming out this coming summer.
Congratulations.
And thank you. It's interesting because I would never have guessed this would have happened, but with each book I've gotten a little more towards seat of the pants kind of writing.
Wow. And it's usually the other way.
Is it? I don't know.
Yeah, I hear a lot of pantsers go towards the plotter side. I hear less about the plotters going more towards the pantser side. And I think that's exciting. What has changed for you because of that?
I think frustration at it, and also that I'm anxious to get writing, and it's hard to make yourself. It's really hard to make your brain come up with a plot. A lot of it just is sort of, I don't know, the muse or whatever. I'm out bike riding and it comes to me like, oh, I could do this, but sometimes it just doesn't come. And so I just sit down and I just start writing, and I make myself write, because especially when I have a deadline, it's like, you can't sit, you don't have the luxury to wait for it to come to you. And it's been kind of fun, actually. So I'd call myself now a plotster. Wait, what would be the combination of those two?
Yeah, plantster, plotster.
Plantster, yeah.
Well, that's really, really cool. How different did it feel to move from writing the culinary crime fiction to this memoir kind of history piece?
Well, interestingly, I actually started writing the memoir before the mystery novels.
Oh, wow.
Because the dinner that I cooked for Ruth Bader Ginsburg actually happened in 2006. And I wrote a rough draft of what happened that year. But then I set it aside. I was working as an attorney at the time, but I'm glad I got it all down because everything was fresh in my mind. But I was working as an attorney, and then I started writing the crime fiction, and it kind of it just sat there on my computer. And then at the urging of my wife and various family and friends, they said, you really need to do that. You really need to do that. So I pulled it out several years ago and, kind of polished it, rewrote it. And so interestingly, it was the other way around. Although I do think that having written all the Sally Solari books, I became a much better writer, because you do, the more you do it. And so it's a good thing I didn't try and publish it back then, because it's a much better book now.
And
I
it
think
has just,
I learned how to write dialogue, and there's a lot of, it's narrative nonfiction. So the Justice is Served, the memoir. So it has a lot of similar attributes to fiction in its writing style than, say, just regular old nonfiction. So it's a storytelling. It's storytelling with a lot of dialogue, and I think having written those mystery novels made me a better writer. There's no murder in this, though. Spoiler alert. Nobody dies.
Thank goodness. Thank goodness.
Well, except for maybe some of the food that I eat.
And may we just say that it just Justice is Served just received a fabulous Kirkus review as well. Congratulations. That's
that was pretty exciting, because they can be pretty
exciting.
harsh.
Thank you. I've been on the cutting edge of that knife.
Oh yes, as have I.
All right. So what is for you the biggest challenge when it comes to writing?
Well, I think what I touched on this earlier, plotting. I mean, and I'd love to, I doubt there are many fiction writers that don't have a hard time plotting. I mean, maybe with literary fiction, where, I mean, the plot is so important in crime fiction, where because you kind of have a contract with your reader. You're going to, I write murder mysteries, so there's always a dead body, and you have to play fair. So you have to plant enough clues that not only can your sleuth figure it out, but the reader might be able to, so you can't drop things at the very end and, oh yeah, there was that. But you also have to do it well enough that it's not too easy, right? So you have to plant red herrings, and you have to figure out where and from that, I mean, I like that kind of writing. I'm good at it. It's actually not surprisingly, or maybe surprisingly, similar to legal writing, because I was a research and appellate attorney. And when you write briefs, when you're writing briefs for the court, you're trying to convince the judge to rule your way. And so you have this set of facts, you have this case law, but how you put it together is what makes the difference. And so you can't leave out facts that are vital to the case. That would be unethical, and also you'd get slammed by the opposing attorney for doing so. But but how you arrange them, what you emphasize, what you de-emphasize, how you write it is really important. And it actually is really similar to crime fiction, I realized years later. Wow. And but it's difficult. I'd say that's the hardest part.
You just explained that so clearly. I have wondered many times about why there is such a direct lawyer to writer pipeline, and that, especially to crime fiction, and that explains it beautifully. Okay, that makes total sense. So what is your biggest joy when it comes to writing?
Dialogue. I love to write dialogue.
Me too. I love it.
Good. I don't know. It's so, I guess because I'm a people person. Dialogue, I think, is what brings a book to life. Mm-hmm. And when you open up a book and just you're thinking of reading it or buying it or whatever, one thing I do is I open it up, and the amount of blank space on a page is really important. I mean, there's some books. One of my very favorite books, and I was just reading an article about it, is Ulysses by James Joyce, and there's not a whole lot of, he does have pages, but and so ignoring those, but for just sort of light reading, you want it to be visually easy, and a lot of dialogue I like, because it's very human. And some people seem to have, I've talked to people who say they have a really hard time writing dialogue. I've always been a word-oriented person. I've studied foreign languages since I was little, and I wrote song lyrics before I was an attorney. And so for me, listening to people speak when you're out and about. I love to just sit on a park bench and listen to conversations. And it's so fun, because of course you want the characters in your books to have different voices. I read somewhere that, you should be able to just, even without taglines saying he said or she said, you should be able to identify who's speaking, but by how their voices, because we all speak a little differently. We use different vocabulary, we have different cadences, and I love playing with that. It's very, very enjoyable for me.
I love how you light up when you're talking about it too. Yeah, I'm exactly like you. I get words stuck in my head. I actually get dialogue stuck in my head. Like some people, I also get songs stuck in my head, but I get words or the feel of words or the sound of words just stuck in my, and I'll wake up saying something in an accent that I just heard, or yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
delicious, delicious for me. So can you share a craft tip of any sort with us?
Well, I guess what if you're having trouble writing dialogue,
Yes, please to share.
start paying attention, pay strict attention to what people, to how people speak. Listen to it, take notes, and just maybe try writing a fake dialogue, like it doesn't have to be even in your book, and see if you can make a differentiation between different characters by how they speak. Yeah, just I think listening, really listening to others.
Right.
Because a lot of times if you just try and do it out of your own brain, we tend to often hang around people that are a lot like us.
Right.
And so maybe, my group of friends, we might all speak kind of the same, but in particularly in crime fiction, you're dealing with killers and things. They're going to talk differently, maybe. But also you can use dialogue to do feints, literary feints, and make somebody think something's happening that isn't, or maybe somebody speaks a certain way, but they're trying to speak a different way, and just be really aware of that.
I recently encouraged somebody to go to just a cafe and type everything that they hear, and somebody else in the group said, "Oh, and just record it and then go." I'm like, "Don't do that. Maybe that might get you in trouble. Please don't record people in public without their knowledge." But capturing it that way is awesome. So can you share with us what the kindest thing that anyone has ever done for you in your writing career was?
The kindest thing that anyone else has ever done for me. Well, I'm going to give a shout out to the crime writing community in general. People like Sisters in Crime. Are you a member of Sisters in Crime?
Yeah. Well, I was when I lived in the States. Now we live in New Zealand. So, but I was.
In New Zealand. Yeah. Oh, what time is it there?
Oh, it's 1:00 p.m.
Oh, it's not that different because I'm actually right now in Hawaii. So
yeah. We're a day ahead, but not far away.
Yeah, but the hour, that's more important. Sisters in Crime and just the crime writing community in general is the most generous, warm, accepting group of people I've ever met in my life. In fact, one of the best things that's happened to me since I've become a crime writer is meeting those people. I mean, in some ways, it's almost better than having the books published because I've made so many close friends. But when I first started out and I didn't know anybody and my first book hadn't been published, famous authors were so nice to me and kind. And you just, it's amazing how generous people are in all levels, offering to talk to you about, give you tips, talk to you about their own struggles getting an agent, even agreeing to read things you'd written or just sit down and chat with you, hold your hand when you're upset about something. There's just, I'd say that I couldn't limit it to one thing. They've just been so wonderful. Yeah.
The generosity of writers is
but I've heard it's not
astounding.
So true in other communities. Like, I don't know if this is true and I might get people mad at me, but I've heard that, for instance, the romance authors are not like that.
They are. I come from Romancelandia too.
Okay,
they
good.
They are just as generous.
Okay, good.
But I had heard the rumor about the crime writers not being as generous
well,
until I joined and I realized, we're just talking smack about different groups. They're all that generous.
Oh, that's good. I'm so glad to hear that. Really, and they do overlap, obviously.
Yeah, they big time. Yeah. No, that's so good. I love that. So what is the kindest
thing? Writers,
Good for writers. What is the kindest thing that you've ever done for yourself?
Refrain from reading my reviews.
Yes. Can you preach? I gave that up about 2 years after my first book came out.
And it is I still once in a while get sucked into that, but even the good ones, I don't think it's just not good for you. It's because they're just not. I mean, I'm talking about like Amazon and Goodreads.
Yeah,
and
me
stuff.
too.
Obviously, the trade publications, I read those,
of course.
But like the Kirkus review, but but in general, it's really best just not to read those because you can get 1-star reviews. I had a 1-star review when my first Sally Solari book came out, and it was based on the fact that she lived in Santa Cruz, where the books take place, Santa Cruz, California, and she accused me of writing about Santa Cruz and not living in, she says, she lives in New York City. I'm like, what? I've lived in Santa Cruz since 1974. So, but she just got really in a tizzy, and that kind of thing is just, yeah, there's nothing you can do about it. And it just gives you sleepless nights. So yeah.
It gives you
I say that.
sleepless nights. Exactly. I think that I can't believe the 5 stars. I'm not the best writer ever. I can't believe the 1 stars. I'm not the worst writer ever. I could probably read the 3 stars. But what I do sometimes is like, I'll ask my sister, or I would ask my assistant to do this, go in and get maybe a general vibe of a book if I'm trying to change something for the next one. But I've never even done that. I do keep an eye on the star rating sometimes, and I'll say,
Yeah.
oh, this has got a good 4.3. Good enough for me. That's
Well, and
all I
ultimately
need.
what's most important is the number of ratings. It could be all 1 star,
Exactly.
actually, but apparently with at least Amazon, you have to, your book won't start showing up in algorithms until it gets a certain amount, and I'm not sure what that amount is, 50
I don't
or
know what
something.
they'll probably never tell us,
So I
but
will
yeah.
occasionally look at that. And by the way, for all those of you who are listening, just because we don't read them doesn't mean we don't want them. Please review the books
We want them desperately, no
and
matter what they are.
even if it's just 3 stars, it was pretty good. That really helps authors because of the weird algorithms that Amazon has. So
Yes, thank you so much for clarifying that. That is a very, 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 very good point. Okay, so speaking of books and reviewing them, what is the best book you have read lately? Can you review it for us?
Yes, I because you had told me you were going to ask me this, and I thought about it, and I would say, just for fun, I love the Richard Osman mysteries, which
I've
are
never read him.
which is the first one is, it's called do I have it here? The Thursday Murder Club.
Oh, I have heard of it. Yes.
And actually they're making it into a movie, and the third one is now out now, and I just read it, and it's called The Bullet That Missed. And the thing about his books is he's a Brit, and he is a television celebrity in England that we Yanks haven't really heard about, but and he does game shows and stuff, and he's very clever and witty, and his books are darling, and they're set in a retirement community in the south of England, in Sussex, I believe. And so all the sleuths are, in their 70s and 80s. And I guess he was inspired to write it because his mom was living in one of these communities. And they're just darling. They're sweet. They're really witty. I mean, it's like, it kind of reminds me of Oscar Wilde sometimes, his wit. But there's a gentleness and a warmth and compassion for human nature in them. And I just adore those books. So go out and read Richard Osman.
I'm going to immediately do that, because lately I go through moods where all I want to read is dark and terrible. And right now I'm kind of reading cozy and comforting. And so, yeah, that's going on my list. Will you now, if you don't mind, a little bit, telling us a little bit more about Justices Served?
Okay. By the way, in case you hadn't noticed, I wanted you all to see who's this.
No.
Shirt.
Okay, for the people who aren't, most people listen to this, so I'm going to describe your shirt. It looks like a fabulous leopard print on the Zoom. It is not leopard print. The spots are Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Yes, it's all her face.
Where did you get that?
I saw it online a couple of years ago, and I don't usually buy clothes online, but I just said I have to have that.
It's absolutely amazing. Okay, tell us about your book.
Okay, so as I said in here, for those of you who are watching, here's a picture of it. It comes out April 4th.
Gorgeous cover.
I love this cover so much. And you can find it on my website. So I like to tell people that it's a Julie and Julia meets Notorious RBG mashup.
That's exactly what I thought. Yes.
In which I recount how I finagled my way into hosting an intimate dinner party with Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg and her fabulous, charming husband, Marty Ginsburg. But it's not just that happening, how it sends me on a journey of culinary discovery and ultimately changes my life, because, like most memoirs, it does that. And it's true. The dinner affected me in ways I would never have guessed. So there's a lot of food in it, obviously, because I'm obsessed with food, and I'm trying to find the perfect meal I found out about this dinner that my dad. So what happened was my father was a constitutional law professor at UCLA Law School, and he had known Ruth since the 60s, back when they were both, she was also a law professor back then. And they'd kept in touch, and my dad was about to retire, and he'd been trying to get her to come to the law school to speak for years and years and years. And finally, he wrote and said, Ruth, this is my last year teaching. If you want to do it on my watch, now's the time. And she said, okay, I'll come. And he told me that, and I said, oh, maybe I should cook you guys dinner, sort of as a joke. And he said, oh, that sounds like a good idea. And I went, holy cow, what have I done? So that set me off on a lot of anxiety, but also excitement. So there's a lot of that in the book. But each chapter also has a little snippet, I call them interludes, where I recount, the book's in the first person, but the little interludes are in the third person, and they are little snippets of her life, her work, her personal life, and other just stuff about her that relates to what just happened in the book. So it's not just completely out of context, but you learn, by the time you finish the book, you actually learn a lot about her in a fun way. There's not a lot of detail about the law. You don't have to worry about that. There are footnotes about the law, because I am a lawyer and you have to have footnotes. But
you are giving me the perfect
and it culminates with the dinner itself, and all the conversation that happened. And since I've took copious notes afterwards, I hadn't been planning on writing the book, but then afterwards I said I should write this down. And so I wrote down everything I could remember about the dinner that the night before. And so it ends in the dinner, but it ends up affecting me in ways I would never have guessed.
This is gorgeous. Thank you for such a beautiful description of it too. Can you tell us a little bit before I let you go, because food is so important in your life, what role it plays a big role in all of your books? What role does it play in your life on a daily basis? This is just a curious question. Are you the main cook
all the time? What am I going to do for dinner? My wife Robin doesn't cook, and so I cook for us most nights. She does the dishes, thank goodness. And I just, nice. I've just been kind of, I love to eat and to cook and experiment with food.
What's your most recent favorite go-to meal that you've been going to?
I made a dish. I had a dinner party recently, and I made this dish. It's actually all of my mystery novels, as well as the Justice is Served. They all have recipes in them.
Yes.
So yes, you get the recipes from of all the things I cooked for Ruth. And I think I can't remember which book it's in. It might actually be in a book that's not out yet. But anyway, there's a recipe for miso ginger chicken, where you marinate I use thighs because they're the most flavorful, in a combination of sake, miso, ginger, brown sugar, and some other things. Garlic, I think. And I couldn't believe how good it was. It's like I came up with this. I mean, I sort of came up with the recipe.
That's amazing.
I'm getting older now, and I'm not as don't have as much energy as I used to. I went to cooking school when I was in my 30s while I was working as a lawyer. I went back to school and went to my local community college cooking school. And back then I was so adventurous, and I was always cooking fancy, trying things out. And I've gotten a little older since then, and don't have quite that energy anymore. So I really like things that you can sort of shove in the oven, but I want them to taste good. Yeah, this one's very good. You'll have to look out for it.
I will. Thank you so much for being on the show. Where can we find you out there online?
It's easy. If you just remember my name, Leslie Karst, it's with a K, Karst. It's lesliekarstauthor.com. If you just Google me, or if you Google Justice is Served, it'll probably come up, or you can Google Sally Solari, the Sally Solari Mysteries.
The series. Thank you. It has been a joy and a delight to talk to you.
I've enjoyed talking to you. I'm sorry you're in New Zealand, or we can hang out.
Thank you, Leslie.